Every morning, you wake up and reach for your phone. Before your feet touch the floor, you have already generated data. Your sleep pattern, the exact moment you woke up, how long you stared at the screen before getting out of bed. This information does not belong to you. It belongs to an industry that knows more about your daily rhythms than your spouse does. And it is not using that knowledge to help you. The term surveillance capitalism was coined by Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff in 2014, but the business model it describes had been running for over a decade by then. The basic mechanism is deceptively simple. Companies offer you free services, search, email, social media, maps, cloud storage, and in exchange, they collect every scrap of behavioral data you produce. Every click, every pause, every scroll, every message you type and then delete before sending. That data is packaged, analyzed, and sold to advertisers who want to predict and modify your future behavior. Think about what that means. There are companies whose entire business model is predicting what you will do before you do it, and then selling that prediction to someone who wants to change your mind. As Zuboff herself put it, surveillance capitalism unilaterally claims human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. The scale of this operation is almost impossible to comprehend. Google processes over 8.5 billion searches per day. Facebook tracks 2.9 billion active users across its family of apps: Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. Amazon knows not just what you buy, but what you almost bought, what you looked at and decided against, what you searched for and then pretended you had not. According to multiple patent filings, the company is building systems that can predict what you will need before you know you need it yourself. Pre-shipping items to warehouses near you based on predictive models of your future desires. In 2018, the Cambridge Analytica scandal revealed what many had long suspected. This data was not just being used to sell you products. It was being weaponized to sell you political candidates. A whistleblower named Christopher Wiley exposed how 87 million Facebook profiles had been harvested without consent and used to build detailed psychological profiles. These profiles could then target individual voters with personalized propaganda. Different messages for different personality types, each crafted to trigger the strongest emotional response. The system was not hacked, it was working exactly as designed. Facebook's entire business model depended on letting third parties access user data, and Cambridge Analytica was just one of thousands of companies that had been given that access. Data is the new oil, said Clive Humby in 2006. He was wrong. Data is far more valuable than oil. Oil can only be burned once. Data can be analyzed, recombined, and sold infinitely to anyone for any purpose at virtually zero marginal cost. That is why the 5 largest companies in the world, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, are all at their core data companies. The infrastructure of surveillance capitalism has now merged with state power in ways that were pure science fiction 20 years ago. Clearview AI, a company valued at over $100 million, scraped billions of faces from social media profiles without consent and sold access to law enforcement agencies worldwide. Police departments in over 2,400 agencies across the United States now use facial recognition technology. But here is the brutal problem hidden beneath the sales pitch. Studies by the National Institute of Standards and Technology found that these systems misidentify Black and Asian faces at rates up to 100 times higher than white faces. This is not a theoretical risk. It has destroyed lives. Robert Williams, a black man from Detroit, was arrested in front of his wife and 2 young daughters in 2020 after a facial recognition system falsely matched his driver's license photo to surveillance footage of a shoplifter. The system was wrong, but by the time anyone verified that, Williams had already spent 30 hours in a jail cell. His children were traumatized. His reputation was permanently damaged. The company that built the system faced no consequences whatsoever. It still sells its technology to police departments today. At least 7 people in the United States have been wrongfully arrested based on faulty facial recognition matches. All 7 were black. The pattern is not a coincidence. It is a direct result of training data that overwhelmingly represents white faces, combined with deployment in communities that are disproportionately policed. In China, the social credit system has transformed behavioral prediction into comprehensive social control. Live facial recognition cameras in public spaces can identify jaywalkers, find them automatically, and display their name and ID number on public screens. A low social credit score can block you from buying plane or train tickets, enrolling your children in private schools, or even checking into a hotel. The line between commercial surveillance and state surveillance has vanished completely. As journalist Carol Cadwallader testified before the UK Parliament, democracy is broken. The technologies that connected us have also been used to divide us. And the companies that built these technologies have become too big to hold to account. But surveillance capitalism does not stop at your online behavior. It has now colonized the physical world of work with a precision that would have made Frederick Taylor weep with envy. Amazon warehouse workers wear scanners that track every second of their movement, every item picked, every step taken, every moment of rest. If your time-off task exceeds a threshold, and that threshold is optimized by algorithms, not by human judgment, the system flags you. Accumulate too many flags and you can be automatically terminated, not by a human manager who knows your name or your circumstances, by an algorithm that has never seen your face and does not know you exist. This is not a dystopian prediction. This has already happened. In 2019, an investigation by The Verge found that Amazon had terminated hundreds of workers at a single fulfillment center through an entirely automated system. No human review, no appeal process. No person to call and explain that you were slower that day because your back was hurting, or because you had just learned that your mother was in the hospital. The algorithm decided you were not productive enough, and that was the end of your employment. The gig economy platforms have pushed this logic even further. In 2020, a Deliveroo rider in the UK was fired by an algorithm after the app flagged him for arriving late to deliveries over a period of several days. He had been hit by a car. He was in the hospital. The algorithm did not care. It had no capacity to care. It simply detected a deviation from expected performance parameters and executed the termination protocol. Uber drivers face a similar reality. Their fares, their routes, their schedules, all dictated by algorithms that optimize for platform revenue, not driver welfare. The drivers are told they are independent contractors, free to work when they want. But the platform uses behavioral nudges, surge pricing alerts, streak bonuses, looming deadlines, to shape when and where and how long they drive. As sociologist Zeynep Tufekci wrote, "We are building a world where the rule of law is being replaced by the rule of code, and the code does not have a conscience. But the most sophisticated, the most profitable, and the most morally indefensible application of surveillance capitalism is not aimed at adults with fully developed prefrontal cortices. It is aimed at the developing minds of children and teenagers, minds that are neurologically vulnerable to exactly the kind of variable reward feedback loops that social media platforms have perfected." In 2021, Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen released tens of thousands of internal documents to the Securities and Exchange Commission and to the Wall Street Journal. The documents revealed that Facebook's own research the company had commissioned, paid for, and then buried, found that Instagram made body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. Teenagers themselves reported that the platform made them feel addicted and anxious and sad, yet they felt unable to stop using it. "I feel like I am addicted to my phone," one teenager told Facebook's researchers. "I just cannot put it down." This was not a glitch in the system. This was the system functioning exactly as designed. The algorithms that maximize engagement, the core technology that generates Facebook's billions in quarterly revenue, do not distinguish between healthy engagement and compulsive behavior. They do not know the difference between genuine interest and clinical addiction. They optimize for a single variable: time spent on the platform. If making teenage girls feel worse about their bodies keeps them scrolling longer, then making teenage girls feel worse about their bodies is exactly what the algorithm will learn to do, over and over, billions of times per day, across millions of young minds. The attention economy has transformed human psychology into a resource to be extracted, refined, and monetized. Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist who now runs the Center for Humane Technology, calls this a race to the bottom of the brain stem, a competition among the world's most powerful technology companies to exploit the deepest, oldest, most automatic parts of human neurology for profit. The average American teenager now spends over 7 hours per day on screen media, not including schoolwork. That is more time than they spend sleeping. That is more time than they spend in face-to-face interaction with other human beings. The consequences are measurable and devastating. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that between 2005 and 2017, rates of major depressive episodes among adolescents aged 12 to 17 increased by 52%. For young adults aged 18 to 25, the increase was 63%. The sharpest rise began around 2011, the year smartphone ownership in the United States crossed 50%, the year Instagram launched, the year Snapchat was born, the year the attention economy achieved escape velocity. Correlation is not causation, but the pattern holds across every demographic group in every Western country, with a consistency that makes alternative explanations increasingly difficult to sustain. The smartphone arrived, social media went viral, and teenagers, especially teenage girls, began reporting unprecedented levels of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and suicidal ideation. The companies that built these platforms knew. Their own data told them, and they chose to continue optimizing for engagement anyway. Here is the uncomfortable truth that the technology industry does not want you to sit with. Surveillance capitalism is not an accident of technology. It was not an inevitable consequence of the internet. It is a business model that was deliberately chosen, repeatedly defended against regulation, and aggressively expanded into every corner of human experience. The companies that run this system, Google, Meta, Amazon, and their peers, are among the most profitable business enterprises in human history. Their executives are billionaires. Their shareholders have seen returns that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. They have absolutely no incentive to change anything about how their business works. But history demonstrates that business models built on social harm can be regulated out of existence. The tobacco industry was forced, after decades of denial and deception, to admit that its product killed people and to pay hundreds of billions in settlements. The automobile industry was forced to install seatbelts, airbags, and emissions controls, all of which were initially resisted as ruinously expensive government overreach. Leaded gasoline was banned worldwide, not because the oil companies volunteered, but because the scientific evidence of neurological